the new head coach of LSU football. Joining us here on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line, he is Brian Kelly. How are you, Brian?
I'm doing good, Rich. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. How you been?
I've been great. I have 2 honorary doctorates, but you don't have to call me doctor.
What do you have? What do you got?
Yeah, well, Grand Valley State, where I started my career, and Assumption College, where I graduated from. So I guess they needed somebody to speak that day.
Dr. Kelly. So you could be Dr. Kelly, technically?
Some days. I think that it looks good on my wall, but as higher education goes, I didn't get much higher than a bachelor's degree.
Well, this is great to have you on this program. First time I'm interviewing you in your new gig, and I guess the awkwardness of the Michigan-Notre Dame rivalry doesn't have to linger anymore between the two of us. This is great.
No, and there was never any awkwardness because
we never spoke to each other on game days. That's why.
We never did, and your 40 was better than my 40, so that's why I got into coaching.
So let me just jump in real quick, certainly with the draft coming in 2 weeks' time, and talk about some players that you know from the Notre Dame days.
Yep.
Tell me about Kyle Hamilton, first time you laid eyes on him, Brian Kelly. What was that?
Well, just, a unique player at the position in which he plays, right? Somebody that's 6'4", athletic, rangy, great ball skills, and he had no buts. He had the and he can come down and play physical, and he was a team player, and he did the little things right. He was a captain for me. He had all the other things. He didn't have a but he doesn't do this, but he doesn't do that. So, when you're talking about guys that, are going to be successful in the NFL, they've got to have a lot of those things going for them, too. And, you can see him on the field and what he can do, but he had so much more for me as a leader of our football program.
And so what can he do at the next level, do you think, Brian?
Well, a unique, player in the sense that, the tight end position, the proliferation of talent in the NFL, all of the tight ends now can stretch the field vertically. He's a guy that can certainly play them and play the ball. He certainly has the ability to come down and play, physical. With his range, he can play in the middle of the field and cover the field. He just is another chess piece defensively that is so unique that you don't get a lot of players that have this kind of range, physicality, the traits that you're looking for that give you as a defensive coordinator, sometimes an advantage, tactically.
Brian Kelly here on the Rich Eisen Show. How many phone calls do you get from the professional level then about players you are now officially used to coach?
Quite a bit. I mean,
okay.
When you're drafted this high, they're all looking for reasons why they shouldn't draft them this high. They're not trying to validate. They're all, at this point, they're like, all right, what's wrong with this guy?
Right.
Give me a reason why I shouldn't draft him this high. It's almost like, I'll try to give you reasons why not to, other than the fact that everything that you know about them, the interviews, there's nothing fake about them. And I think that that's what I get more than anything else is, we've had so many first-round draft picks, and in particular the offensive line, too, that, they get a little nervous that it's too good to be true.
And what's it like to, I guess, did you run LSU Pro Day? I mean, because you're just fresh there.
I did. Now, certainly I didn't know the kids well enough to be able to go out on the line and, comment on them as well. Obviously, Stingley is the, the highest, profile player here.
Right.
And I didn't have a close relationship with him because he was injured. And then, when I, came here, I didn't coach the team in the bowl game, so I got a chance to meet him. He's a wonderful young man, but I couldn't really add anything to his evaluation. So his pro day had to speak for itself. What was great for me, Rich, more than anything else, is I was able to meet a lot of alumni that came back, and for me, that's as important as anything else, getting a chance to touch base with former players here from LSU.
And so who was that?
Well, Patrick Queen was back. You had, Tyrann Matthews has been back. Chase On has been back. So probably 5 or 6 NFL players have come back in the last week or so that I had never gotten a chance to meet. And, obviously the circles that I was in South Bend, we never crossed paths. So, just getting that opportunity to meet, and it's certainly, the Booger McFarlands of the world and Marcus Spears and Ryan Clark, all those guys, getting a chance to meet, those that are in the media as well has been, it's been a good journey for me.
Brian Kelly here on the Rich Eisen Show. So let's just, in terms of the differences between your previous spot and now, the one thing I would think of, and you could tell me if I'm off, is that there might be some kids that you can recruit that Notre Dame might tell you can't get in, and LSU is different. Is that putting too fine a point on it, or have you seen that already so far, Brian Kelly?
Yeah, I would say that we can cast a larger net in terms of recruitment. There's no doubt about that. We're talking about 35,000 students, 8,000 small Catholic schools, so your profile is certainly going to be different from that perspective. So, I still want, young men that value a degree and have the right traits. So there's going to be some similarities relative to the young men that I want to recruit to LSU. Mm-hmm. But no, you're absolutely right. There's going to be a larger profile that allows me to recruit, more student athletes that I couldn't recruit at Notre Dame.
And you might be have a potentially a friendlier relationship with the provost down in Louisiana than maybe previously, Brian Kelly?
No, I don't think that I had an adverse relationship with anybody at Notre Dame. I think we were all on the same page relative to, what our mission was and who we could get into school and who we didn't, and I felt very comfortable with that. I think here, we have to do a better job academically, quite frankly. We have to be able to up our APR, GSR, and we're not going to run away from that, but we have to do a better job down here. And, I thought Notre Dame did a great job of balancing both academics and athletics. So I think for me, Rich, to be quite honest with you, I think from a recruiting standpoint, the state of Louisiana offers us so much more relative to the ability to stay in state and really pull a lot of our players right from the state. We weren't going to do that in Indiana. We had to go to California, Texas. We had to be on the East Coast in New Jersey and the coastal areas, and that will change dramatically. That'll probably be the biggest difference between the two schools is that we can stay in the state of Louisiana and we can cast a wider net.
Has your recruiting forced you to try different foods you've never tried before, Brian Kelly?
Oh, there's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. And I've got 2 personal trainers now to make sure that there's a lot of fried food. There's no doubt about it. I haven't seen a salad yet on any of the menus that I've been at. So, but look, I grew up in Boston, so seafood has always been, something that I've always loved. Went to the Midwest. I can't say seafood's number 1 on the menu in the Midwest, and I come down here and seafood's back to number 1. So that's been really nice.
Okay.
And the people are, friendly, and they love football, and they love food. What's wrong with that?
I hear you. Brian Kelly here on the Rich Eisen Show. How is the NIL world different at LSU than from Notre Dame?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's incredible support here in the community. I think donors, embrace it. I don't want to speak for Notre Dame, but I don't know that all schools embrace it the same way. Here it's embraced as part of, what will be probably our reality, Rich, moving forward, that they are going to be part of recruiting and what you're going to have to do, in putting together name, image, and likeness deals. And so early on, the building of name, image, and likeness opportunities has been very successful down here. And I don't know that goes across the country yet, but everybody's kind of figuring out what's good for them. And it's not universal, right? Because there's different laws in different states, and I think there's different support from universities across the board.
I think the words "figuring it out" that you kind of just said is universal. We had Mac Brown of North Carolina on a couple of weeks ago. he said that things are just there's no rules. I mean, I'm sure you must have heard Dabo Swinney's comments to ESPN that might have crossed your eyes or your ears at some point, saying that the sport's heading for a reckoning, that there's really no rules about it. Are you seeing a similar experience, Brian Kelly, on that?
Yeah, I mean, clearly the unintended consequences of this, when the ruling came down that kind of left it up to the universities and the states, there's no universal principles. However, you're guided by, federal laws relative to, taxable income. And so there are some, 1099s have to be shown for work. This is not, we're not at pay for play right now. We are still in your name, your image has got to be the reason for your compensation. So there are governing principles. Look, if you want to cheat, you can cheat at anything you want to cheat at. But there are governing principles in terms of how you do it. Now, we have to look at it as what are the incentives for name, image, and likeness. I want to attach GPA. I want to attach your community service work for you to get name, image, and likeness. There should be incentives for that. So I think we've got a plan. Could it be better if there's more stringent regulations on it? But I don't think we have time to pause. I think we have to hit the ground running and make sure that we don't get too far in front of ourselves, but be ready to put something together.
Brian Kelly here on the Rich Eisen Show. So I guess before I send you on with your day, now that you're a few weeks and months removed from your big decision to switch gigs and switch jobs and switch communities and switch programs, what did you learn from the process, I guess is the question, Brian Kelly? That the conversation, you were the first to go, or it was right after Lincoln Riley, and the conversation about coaches and leaving, and kids now have transfer portals and coaches get to leave. And what did you make of all of that now that we're a few months removed from it, Brian?
Well, I've been involved in it a couple of times. I was at Cincinnati, and I was at my banquet, the night that the news broke that I was going to Notre Dame, and I was in front of my team at Cincinnati when their phones blew up that I was taking the job at Notre Dame, and I was promised that wouldn't come out, and that would come out after my banquet. Somehow that got leaked. Then I was in a situation where this information wouldn't come out until I finished recruiting. It got out. The one thing I know is that I don't handle and I don't have any control over the timeline. All I have control over is the decisions that I make. And the decision in both of those instances, I decided to leave Cincinnati to go to Notre Dame, and I decided to leave Notre Dame to go LSU. But everything else, I didn't control the circumstances, which made it very difficult in both instances for me in addressing my team. And it's unfortunate. It stinks. But if I could control it, neither one of those scenarios that I just outlined to you would have ever happened.
I guess stuff gets out, and it's a raw emotion. It's so raw, obviously, when somebody like of your stature goes and leaves to a new community. And I just don't know if there's a fix to it. I mean, the conversation is always out there that you make it like the NFL, where there's a certain time period under which a person like yourself gets to leave or anything like that. Would you be up for something like that?
Absolutely. If it was a universal principle and everybody operated under the same setting, I would have absolutely no problem with it. It's just that there's no universal guidelines for it. And as I said, the timeline is the athletic director of that other institution. I mean, you have no control over that.
Coach, appreciate the time, man. Thanks
Rich,
for calling in.
Good talking to you, and good luck in the 40. You're going to run the 40 again.
I am actually doing it in 10 days at the Rose Bowl.
Oh, how good is that?
Yes, because we're trying to raise as much money for St. Jude as possible. And this just in, it's not easy to credential people at the scouting combine for your own personal run.
I'm sure that finding the alternative site in the Rose Bowl wasn't easy either, but good luck to that. That's great.
Come
great
on,
news.
man. I mean, there's nothing more iconic. There's no place more iconic to mask the lack of physical attributes that I will put out there, Coach. You know.
Good luck with it, and thanks for having me on.
Anytime. Thanks for the call. Thanks for the call. That's Brian Kelly, everybody, from LSU football, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.